Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Chapter 20, where we are talking about mixtures. And this is Part 3. And we primarily are going to be talking about solutions from this point. Solutions are what you usually use in the chemistry world. Okay, first off, whenever you have two parts of a solution, you probably have heard this before, but it doesn't hurt to review it. The solvent, you usually will hear the definition that it dissolves the solute. The solvent, however, the best definition would be whatever substance it has the greater amount in the solution. And this is because if you are dealing with, for example, two liquids or two gases or something like that, it's hard to say what's dissolving and what. So it's whatever has the greatest amount in the solution. And the solute is still just whatever it is that's getting dissolved. So if it's not the solvent, it's the solute. And if you have multiple things, whichever one's the most is the solvent. All the others would be considered solutes. Okay, now the different types of solutions. As I mentioned, you can have a gas dissolved in a gas. The atmosphere would be an example of this. You have nitrogen as the main gas. You have oxygen, helium, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, ozone, all kinds of different gases dissolved in our atmosphere. So, gas dissolved in a gas. You also can have a gas dissolved in a liquid. An example of this would be where you have soda or something like that, where carbon dioxide has been added to the liquid. The pressure keeps it there, but the gas is still dissolved in the liquid, and it stays that way pretty well until that pressure is released and you leave it in the hot sun for a long time. Then you get flat soda. But it is still a gas dissolved in a liquid as long as it stays there. Thirdly, you can have a gas dissolved in a solid. Okay, what you're seeing is kind of a cloudy looking chunk of ice. And the reason it looks cloudy is not because it's dirty, but because there are air bubbles that are trapped in the solid. So you can have a gas dissolved in a solid. You'd have the air bubbles and carbon dioxide and all of that dissolved into this ice and trapped in there. Okay, next, solutions can be a liquid dissolved in a gas. Now, there is controversy over whether this actually qualifies as a solution. It depends on who you read and what they say as far as their explanation. I personally think it's a liquid dissolved in a gas. When you have a fog and you have a liquid, these little water droplets suspended in the atmosphere and they're just sitting there, I would consider that a liquid in a gas. Okay, same thing for clouds. I would consider that a liquid dissolved in a gas. Okay, so I'm of that opinion. If you decide that it's not a solution and that it's a suspension, that's fine too. Okay, you can have a liquid dissolved in a liquid. Whenever you see like 70% this or this percent this, yeah, for bleach, ethyl alcohol, and saline, and on, what they've done is they've actually combined two liquids. So, rubbing alcohol you can get in different percentages. This is usually what's considered for sterilizing things, cuts and wounds and such. It's a mix of ethyl alcohol, which is a type of alcohol, and water. Okay, so it's a liquid dissolved in a liquid, and you're used to this all the time. A lot of the things you drink are liquids dissolved in liquids. Okay, third, one that happens very seldom is a liquid dissolved in a solid. And what you're looking at here is what fillings are made out of, or at least were made out of, and that is mercury dissolved into a metal, okay, called an amalgam. And really, there are very few liquids and solids that can do this. So this is one of the few situations because mercury is a liquid at room temperature and it will literally just kind of soak into the different solids, including primarily metals. Okay. Next, solutions can be a solid dissolved in a liquid. These you are very familiar with. This is when you put your sugar in your tea or your sugar in your lemonade or mix a fruit drink, if they still do that with powder, making pudding, making jello, etc., and so forth. Okay, these we are very familiar with. Okay, and you don't see the solid after a little while. Now, one of the things that we often don't think of is a solid dissolved into a solid. And this is where you have two solid things, especially in this case metal, and you end up combining them together in a mixture. They still stay separate metals. They don't chemically combine, but when they're physically mixed with each other, they make what's called an alloy. The ALLOY, alloy. And we often refer to it as something different. So what you're seeing here is a mixture of tin and copper, and it creates the alloy of bronze, which has a different look and it has different properties because of the different things combined together. Okay, so these are the different types of solutions. You will notice that you don't have solids dissolved in a gas. You only have two here instead of three. That is because generally if something is considered a solid, its particles are large enough that they cannot be mixed properly with a gas. It would be considered usually a suspension where something is mixing it, like if you have snow crystals in the air, ice crystals in the air in the clouds, and they're being held there because of the movement of the air. That is would be considered a suspension once they're solid particles. Okay, so we will talk more about solutions next time. So have a good day.